We have a very active weather pattern shaping up over the course of the next week. So here is the setup going forward. This morning, we've got this dominating ridge of high pressure that's pretty much locked over the upper Midwest and a good part of the Northeast. That's got a lot of sinking air, plenty of record high temperatures broken yesterday. But the big change is coming out west with this more significant trough that's really diving into the Four Corners region. And you can see the middle, right? You can see the separation. This is what's often called the battle zone. And that's where we're going to be unloading the atmosphere that is prime for severe weather later on this afternoon into the overnight hours. So I do expect showers and thunderstorms to really enhance as we get towards sundown and especially into the overnight hours, because the moisture surge is going to be alive and prevalent coming off the Gulf of Mexico. You can see the south winds that pulls all the Gulf moisture out of the Gulf into Texas, back into the plains, all the way surging well north into Iowa, back into Wisconsin, even as far north as the Canadian border. So yeah, very unusual for this time of year to have such high dew points and such record-breaking temperatures. I mean, it's been an extremely warm October, and these are all the record high temperatures that occurred yesterday. So anywhere that you see a red shaded dot, that broke your daily record high. Some of them actually broke the monthly record high for the month of October. So yeah, you can numerous, at least 60 record highs, especially most of them across the upper Midwest and the Great Plains. And yes, we're talking more record highs today. Potentially another 44 could likely be broken later on this afternoon. All these areas that are encircled, that's where you are expecting your daily record temperatures to be broken for that given day. So you got 90s to the south, 80s surge well into Arkansas, Illinois, back into Indiana, even as far north as Ohio, even into Michigan could be sporting 80 degrees this afternoon. Just very unusual this time of year, but you can see the sharp temperature gradient, right? You've got the 40s out into Nebraska, back into the 30s in Wyoming, and you get 60s, 70s, and 80s across the middle part of the country. And yes, that is going to spell trouble in the form of severe weather. So we do have the upgraded, enhanced risk for severe storms later on this evening. I think things get going around sundown towards the Oklahoma region, but especially there in Kansas into Missouri. This is going to be a larger hail threat within those regions, lighter amounts as you fishtail further south into Texas. But the winds are going to be prevalent too. They're going to be cranking anywhere from 60 to likely 70 miles an hour there into the plains, and especially into Kansas there, getting into Missouri. And unfortunately, we do expect tornadoes with this activity, and some of them could be strong tornadoes. You got that hatched risk for those areas in the northern portions of Oklahoma, getting into Texas and portions of Missouri. And then you can always can't roll out along a squall line, which is this expected to be further south into Oklahoma, and getting into North Texas is a more of an isolated tornado threat for those regions across the Red River. But man, look at the dew points, folks. I mean, you would think looking at this map, it could be like the month of June. It's not, folks. This is October. Very unusual. You got 70s pushing out of the Gulf, upper 60s as far as moisture surge, and those 60s surge into Kansas. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this severe storms. This is later in the season. We've had a very quiet October, a kind of dry October. There's a lot of the country in a desperate drought right now. And unfortunately, it comes back in the form of severe storms. And luckily, but after this, we do have more rounds of severe storms, but it does bring beneficial rains back across a good part of the plains that will unload over the course of the next week. So we're going to break this thing down for you day by day. But the main concern today is going to be the tornado risk getting in towards sundown into the overnight hour. So where you see the yellow shaded area and the dotted, that is your hatched risk. It's basically implying the atmosphere is prime for not just tornadoes, but some of these could be strong tornadoes. The EF2 type variety or potentially bigger. So it is more of a significant severe weather day. So do expect towards sundown, towards the Tulsa region, northward into Wichita, back into Topeka, up here towards Kansas City, even swinging as far north as Des Moines and as far south as the North Texas region. You can't rule out an isolated tornado too within this setup. So I think things get going. Here's the radar depiction going to that 7 o'clock time frame. So I think about between 6 and 10, this kind of a broken line, more or less a broken line with this squall line. So as long as it remains more discrete and kind of broken, that is going to include a much larger tornado risk. That's why Oklahoma and especially Kansas is more under the gun for tornadoes. Swinging further north into Iowa, the threat lessens. More of a heavier rain threat as you swing further north into Wisconsin. Not much happening so far further south into Oklahoma and to Texas, but it's not going to be until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, in the wee hours of the morning, you've got that squall line moving across southeastern Oklahoma, getting into North Texas, portions of central Texas, more of a squall line that's moving through the overnight hours. Higher impacts with gustier winds, some small to larger hail within that, and you never can rule out an isolated tornado might quickly spin up in that type of activity. But the main tornado threat is definitely going to be in Oklahoma, but especially in Kansas. But I know Halloween is tomorrow. A lot of people have plans for Halloween. If you have the little ones, you want to take them out for trick-or-treating. This is where the setup is going to be by the time you kind of head out the door for your Halloween plan. So everywhere you see in the green shaded area, that's where you're going to have some instability, some rain coming back in the picture for the Pacific Northwest, some snow into the higher elevations. But the middle part of the country should be fairly clear. So where you get the storms now, it should be clear for the Halloween plans. But as you swing further east towards Houston, through Louisiana, back into Mississippi, those areas into western Tennessee, Kentucky, back up into Indiana, those areas into Michigan, you're not going to be so lucky that you're going to have some rain to impact your trick-or-treating plans. But once you swing further east across the eastern seaboard, the southeast, and into the Carolinas, you should remain on the dry side. But we have yet another system that will be coming in as we head into Saturday. So we're going to have a little bit of a reprieve as the atmosphere kind of reloads itself. And as it does, it will open up the Gulf of Mexico yet again. So we are expecting more widespread showers and thunderstorms back into Texas, back into Oklahoma, into Kansas, as Missouri, Arkansas, into Louisiana. And yet we'll be watching another much more even significant trough that will be diving into the Four Corners region. But this one dips even a little bit lower. Usually the further these dig, the more intense they are once they come out. So you still got the ridge of high pressure. I don't think that's really going anywhere across the upper Midwest and much of the up into the Great Lakes and the Northeast. I think you definitely remain on the well above average side. While you still have that clash in temperatures, it might move a little bit further off to the east, but nonetheless, it's almost kind of the same spot getting going, because we have yet another trough that will be diving southbound heading into Sunday. So once we go into Sunday, we've got a low pressure, another much more significant low pressure that will be coming out of the Northwest, diving down here into the Baja of California. And as it digs further south and as it comes out, we are going to be expecting a renewed threat for severe weather. So yes, this is by Sunday. We could be looking at much more significant events for Wichita Falls, back into the Oklahoma City region, back into the plains again, as well into Kansas. It could be a repeat of what might be unloading for tonight for that area. And then more rain coming back in the picture for Sunday afternoon as the Gulf of Mexico will be opened up even more. That surges well north. I mean, you look at the freezing line. There's not much cold air around, folks. This is going into November. Not really much cold air to speak of. So the freezing line's well to the north. And that's one of the reasons why we're getting the storms, because storms love heat. And that's exactly what we're going to have plenty of in comparison to what you would typically see on a normal first week of November. And yeah, this could be a more of a nastier setup heading into Monday with that kind of ski jump trough that's going to be ejecting out of the Four Corners region into the plains, because this could be a little bit more significant threat heading into Monday. This definitely appears to be a kind of a nastier setup. So right now, nothing official from the Storm Prediction Center, but the CSU guidance, more the AI guidance, is already hinting at the same areas, right? With that trough like that, definitely we're going to be looking at a severe, if not almost probably moderate risk day in some areas across the plains. But right now, it appears to be anywhere from Texas all the way to Wisconsin is going to be on high alert for all three modes of severe weather for your Monday. So we'll be fine tuning it. Nothing official from the SPC because, again, we're 6 days out. But looking at the trough right now and all the dynamics, the moisture return, the more everything's kind of coming together for a dangerous day ahead. Because look at the moisture; it's even more prevalent than what it's going to be today or this weekend as higher water content fuels back. There's the low pressure center setting up over the Texas Panhandle, so it's that right quadrant that pulls off the Gulf moisture. That's where we're going to have to be concerned about. So this could be a dangerous day. We'll be fine tuning it as we get closer, but again, there's not much colder air. I mean, this is November the 5th, right? These are well above average temperatures in the morning time, 15, 20, uppers to 25 degrees higher than what you would typically see this time of year. And you only have a trough that's digging in that brings down some cooler air. I wouldn't say even colder air. Some might be snowing into some of the higher elevations, but it's really not until maybe the 6th or 7th time frame where, yeah, some of this could unload some snow across the Rockies, getting into New Mexico, maybe even in the far corners of the Texas Panhandle, might even see a dusting or two. Well, again, the red stays over the east, so you remain high and dry. But by then, by the 6th or 7th, I do feel that we're going to have to be watching the tropics a little bit more closely. So there's your snow that will likely come in with that second trough that's coming in that could reach portions of the Texas Panhandle. That is November the 6th and 7th time frame. But by the 7th time frame, we do start to see that moisture returning back for the southeast. So I do feel you're going to remain on the drier side for really the foreseeable future. You miss out on most of the action of what's going to come out of the plains because the cold front is not going to be making it into your area. So I think the east remains dry. I think much of the Carolinas remains dry. I think much of the Florida remains dry in the southeast really for the next week. So it's not until a week from now that moisture does come back into play. And I think that's going to be stemming from what might be coming out of the Caribbean. So we've been watching this system for an extremely long time. Still, the National Hurricane Center has a 40% probability of this thing getting going towards Jamaica. And there's a small chance of slow development. But more indications are that it does, once it tries to develop, it lifts further north. So yes, we are expecting it to possibly come patty over the next week. And then as it does, it's going to be lifting north through the Grand Caymans, through Cuba. So we'll be having to watch this. If anything, we'll be spreading more moisture back into the southeast, back into Florida, back into those areas, into the Carolinas, where they really just haven't seen much really since Helene and Milton. So overall, here's your snow, right? So you got the snow coming in over the next 7 to 10 days, more or less for the higher elevations, not terribly too much cold air to speak of. There's the dusting you could unfold in far extreme portions of the Texas Panhandle, but the rain is going to be alive and prevalent. So we've got the combination of the Pacific Northwest systems, pretty common for a La Nina type year to get heavy rains across that region. We are going to get some beneficial rains across the Southwest, but not terribly too much. But the main action is going to be across the plains with multiple systems. So we could be picking up some pretty significant major dent totals and the drought for a lot of these areas across the plains that they've been dealing with as of late. But that moisture surges well to the north into the warm sector. These temperatures are expected to remain well above average side for the next 7 to 10 days, really. And it's not until this moisture comes back into play, but this is not really until the 7th or 8th of November. And that likely, again, it may be what's to come that might be coming out of fruition there into Jamaica, into the Caymans, maybe through the Gulf of Mexico again, and spreading moisture back into Florida, for those areas into the Southeast, back into the Carolinas. So obviously we'll be fine-tuning that as we get closer through the first week of November. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch my next update. Why I protect you before and after storm.